Hello and welcome to my lesson on subtractive EQ. So today we're going to talk about exactly what subtractive EQ is. Now, this is actually the process of finding parts of sounds that we like, keeping them, finding the parts we don't like, and getting rid of them. So let me show you how I have used subtractive EQ to make this track here. It's quite a short track. It's kind of like chill step. I don't really know what genre it is. I just made it because I enjoyed it. But the first thing I have here is an 808 kick. Now I'm using two different kick drums. This is because I wanted to use one for its sort of meaty bass end and one for its more higher clicky end, and combining the two I think gets a really nice sound. So yeah, let's listen to this 808. Okay, so we can hear what I've done is just left the sort of really loud part around 50 Hertz, and I've used a high shelf to remove the top ends of the sound. Let's listen to what happens if I actually put the high shelf back. Okay, you can hear there's a bit of click. Let's move the shelf down and see what happens. Okay, obviously I removed all the sort of the mids, the treble, so this sound is pretty much just a sort of meaty bass sound, and it doesn't really sound like a kick drum in itself. So let's move on to the 909, so we see what I've done here. Okay, with the 909, obviously I've left in some of these upper mids because I quite like the sort of clicky sound that we get at the 3K mark. Let's listen. That's quite nice. I've just removed the sort of, well, I've moved the high shelf down just because I don't think that really contributes to the kind of sound I want. What have I done at 659 Hertz here? Let's have a listen to what happens if I boost it or reduce it. See how that didn't really have any effect? What that tells me is that there's not really any kind of useful information around that frequency. So I'm safe to remove a frequency like that because it's just going to add nothing really, and I want to leave space for other instruments to breathe. In the same vein, what I've done down here with the low shelf is just move it down. It doesn't really make any difference to the sound. So I'm happy to remove that. So let's put the two kicks together. So it has a nice thump, but it also has a nice little bit of click there. And that's a sort of example of subtractive EQ. Let's move on to the next pattern, which is the tal bass. Now this is a sort of synthesizer. I've got the EQ off at the moment. Let's turn it on. Okay. If I bring the high shelf up, we can actually see there's so much volume down this end, but there's almost nothing at the top end. So what that tells me is actually it's quite safe to remove all these frequencies, but let's make sure just by listening to what happens when we move the high shelf down. Okay. So there was really hardly any difference when we removed all these frequencies. So that's good, because we can keep all the useful information and remove a lot of the stuff we don't want. And this is basically how we do subtractive EQ. Let's move on to the hat. So it's a similar process, but this is kind of the opposite end from the bass because all the interesting frequencies are around the treble end. If I open up the shelf again, okay, we can see that there are some frequencies down here because it's kind of lighting up purple a bit, but there's really not much. All the energy is clearly around the top end, so let's remove. Okay, I think this sounds okay. The hi-hat has lost a bit of clarity, but it's not too thin, and I've removed a lot of the frequencies I don't want. So this is a continuing theme, and finally, we're going to do the clap, and then I will play the track for you. I'm going to turn off the reverse clap for now. Yeah, I wanted to include this one because this is a really extreme example. Like, around this frequency here, we have an unwanted frequency, so let me show you what I mean. So do you hear how that sounds quite unpleasant, like as a snare, as a clap? We don't want that sound. So what I've done is just taken it right down, and it sounds a lot cleaner now. So the rest of the track, the rest of the EQ is just, again, I'm taking the bass out. I don't really want bass sounds in a clap. I don't want too much treble either. So I've just taken the high shelf down a little bit. And yeah, just making all these changes makes your track cleaner, leaves room for instruments to breathe. So let's play just a snippet of the track with all the instruments, and we can hear the effect it has. So yeah, that's starting to sound quite good. So that's an illustration of subtractive EQ. Thanks for listening.